right there, that's about 11 ounces of leather. Veg-tan leather. This is my hand crank leather sewing machine. Sometimes I see these referred to lately as manual sewing machines because you do have to hand crank them. I've had mine for about 5 or 6 years now, still using it, still enjoying it. It's a low-cost leather sewing machine for those of you who are looking to sew leather. They're primarily made for working on shoes. That's why they have this really long arm that comes out, and it's very narrow so you can get a shoe in there and turn it around. You can also turn the presser foot to be able to sew with the shoe. So this is what I'm going to be working on today. This is some 4-ounce Wicked & Craig Buck Brown harness leather. First thing I'm going to address, because I know I'm going to get a bunch of questions asking this, is what size thread am I using? I am using a size 92 bonded polyester thread. That said, a bonded polyester or bonded nylon or a monofilament thread are my favorite threads to use. Now, as for my needle, I currently have a size 18 leather point sewing needle in here. This is usually raw steel when you first purchase it. Very quick and easy to hit it with a can of Krylon spray paint. Also, your presser foot has some teeth on the back. Again, this is meant for pulling shoe material. Maybe leather, maybe not, maybe a softer material. So what a lot of people do, including myself, is just dip this in some rubber dip. Again, this is completely optional and not something you have to do. You can use this out of the box. So once your machine is threaded, you just pull the thread backwards, keeping tension on the thread. Place your work down. I'm going to lower my presser foot. I'm going to pull tension backwards on my thread. And then I'm going to come over here to the hand crank. I'm just going to start advancing the machine. And there you can see it stitched. Now to backstitch, I can either raise the presser foot up, and I can spin the presser foot backwards, and I can sew backwards. That is one feature of this machine. One thing I like to do sometimes, though, is to keep the presser foot facing in one direction and spin my work around and begin stitching back through the holes. Bring my flywheel all the way to the up position, raise my presser foot, and then right up here I'm going to pull some tension in the thread, and then down here I'm going to pull my work out. Take my snips, now let's take a look at that. There's where I started. I did not backstitch at the beginning, and then you can see here where I backstitched and then went back again over it. Let's look at the back. Other than this stitch right here that popped up, and that's the end, I can snip that off. That is a nice, tight, clean stitch. Now say I wanted to go ahead and put another layer of leather on that and sandwich that in between. Let's go ahead and do that. Pull my thread back. I'm going to drop my presser foot. I'm going to advance the machine. I'm going to make sure I'm pulling my thread tight. There we go. You can see there was a little loop in there. That's because I didn't pull my thread tight. Now we're going to spin it around. I'm going to backstitch. Spin it around again, making sure my threads are out of the way. Now you can see right here, my hand slipped a little bit. Spin it around again. Okay. Let's pull that one out. Take a look at it. Same thing. Snip, snip. Now you can see nice even stitches, except for right here, that was operator error. So let's look at the back. Again, they're tight stitches. There's no loose stitches back here. The tension is properly set on the machine, and it's pulling tight. And we even sewed through the stitching that we did earlier. So not only did it go through 2 layers of 4-ounce, went through another layer of 4-ounce, which that was skived a little bit, so let's call that 11 ounces total, all 3 instead of 12. But right there, that's about 11 ounces of leather. Veg tan leather. Trick with this machine, take your time, don't rush it. Now I'm going to list down in the description below links to all this stuff. I'm also going to list bonded nylon thread. Now this spool right here I wound off of a bigger cone. When you get bigger cones, you probably want to use a thread mast like this. This is what I normally do. Take the cone, put it on there, and it just sits behind the machine and it runs off of that. If you're not familiar with that, most industrial machines have thread masts. But this is a good little machine. It holds up, it does what it's supposed to. It is not a fancy machine. When you get it, it comes with a little tripod. I just put mine on a little wooden mount. I have it clamped to my workbench. And as you see, it does work. It is finicky at times. Sometimes you have to do a little troubleshooting. There are communities for these machines on Facebook where people do all kinds of modifications. I've seen people do modifications where they put flat tops on them and turn them into regular sewing machines. I've seen people put motors on these. I've put a motor on these things before. They're a fun machine. People do all kinds of things with these machines. They're really versatile and they're a lot of fun to use. And for the price point, something that can sew leather like that, for a hobbyist, this is great. Now as you can see, I just turn the flywheel here and it stitches the leather there.